15 years ago, our Siberian Husky Tasha came to us as an energetic, happy-go-lucky puppy. She was just a few months old when we got her, and full of life. She was a beautiful girl, a bi-eyed bombshell with one brown eye and one blue. I used to sing a Crystal Gale song to her, but changed the words a bit. Don't you make my brown eye blue. She had a heart of gold. Tosh was outgoing and very friendly to people and other animals, except mice. She was the best mouser in the house, even better than our cats. She charmed me and I fell in love with her quickly. We had 15 wonderful years together of love, friendship, adventures, and happiness, but with a little mayhem. This is our story. I was smitten with her the moment I laid eyes on her, as was my wife. She fit in well with our other two dogs and submitted to them both, even though she was a large breed, and our Bushland Terrier Lucy wasn't. The first few years we had her, she caught on to potty training quickly and was always eager to please, though if you gave her an inch, she took a mile. We learned quickly that she could outrun most other dog breeds, and she would just keep running if set free. Her endurance was also impressive. Impressive if you weren't trying to catch her, that is. She would just keep going until she was a little speck on the horizon. Huskies are a very vocal breed, and Tasha was no exception. She would always greet us with a happy, "a woo woo woo." She would tell me off vocally when she didn't approve of something too, though it was rare. In 2012, we moved to our new place, and Tasha became good friends with our neighbor's dog, Leroy. They hung out together with Leroy's daily visits to see her. Both of them loved being outside, especially with one another. They were inseparable. Now, one day during the summer of 2012, she got free from her rope. It looked as though Leroy had released her from the collar somehow. With his mouth, maybe? I don't know. The clip was still fully intact, but void of Tasha. They took off together. We put out missing alerts on social media and searched relentlessly for them through the back trails and in the car. But with thousands of acres of bushland around us, we figured that they would just have to come home on their own. When they finally did return, 3 days later, Leroy had a muzzle full of porcupine quills, and they were in his feet too, but Tasha was quill-free. They were both very hungry and returned together, as Tasha had stayed with him to help him get back. The following summer, Leroy busted Tasha out again and they ran away. After a day, Leroy returned without Tasha. We were frantic. We thought that since Leroy came home without her, maybe she was dead. We searched and searched, spammed social media, and posted missing posters. 3 days after they had run off, I was outside and saw Tasha limping up towards the house. I ran to her and noticed that she was full of porcupine quills this time. Her muzzle, her front feet, and up around her eyes. Fortunately, they had all missed her eyes. After an emergency vet visit, we got her home safely and began to question Leroy's commitment to Tasha. He had booked on her, even after she had stayed with him. I'll admit I felt scorned by Leroy. He had abandoned my baby girl in the forest. This proved me that Tasha was selfless and Leroy wasn't, and that made me proud of her. Despite all the worry she'd caused, Tasha had proven herself loyal. I bought some steel cable and fastened it between two trees, up high like a clothesline. I strung a sliding zip line to the cable and attached it to her collar. She could run as much as she wanted now, a good 70 feet, without the threat of escape. I also fastened a heavy-duty safety latch to her collar this time so Leroy couldn't bust her out anymore. This worked well for a while until Tasha chewed and tore all the bark off of one of the trees and killed it. So we got her a dog pen. The neighbor also got Leroy a dog pen. So their days of crime together were finally over. In 2016, we had our vet remove a large 4.5 pound growth from her side. It was coming in just behind her front right leg. It grew so quickly that we were dumbfounded. I won't show pictures of it, it was very unsightly, but it was huge. It looked like she had a 4.5 pound roast in there. It was taken out successfully and Tasha was on the mend now. The test results from the lab came back as non-cancerous and we were very relieved. We spoiled her rotten. After a brief healing period, she was allowed to exercise and Tasha was as good as new. We became involved with animal rescue with Home Again in Bancroft, Ontario. Tasha always loved the new friends that came along with it, and she was a social butterfly. We fostered some and adopted a couple. Tasha became an invaluable resource to us whenever we adopted or fostered a dog that was waiting for adoption. She chummed right up with all new additions and bonded with them quickly, became their constant companion. She made them feel accepted. She helped us rehabilitate our foster Baron, who turned out to be a great boy. I credit Tasha for a lot of our success with him. He was adopted successfully and is still living a great life. Then we adopted Hobo from Home Again. He was a senior rescue, had been bounced from home to home his whole life. He was a sweet boy and very appreciative. They bonded instantly and Tasha became the alpha in that relationship. Then one fine summer day, Hobo busted them out of the dog pen and they ran off together. This was becoming a recurring theme with Tasha. Thankfully, he came when I called him and Tasha followed him back. I suppose that he knew he was home with us. So the snap clip I used to secure the pen door was replaced with a good quality lock. We walked through the woods so many times together and had so many adventures. It was awesome. Hobo lived with us for a couple of years with Tasha by his side. Then Hobo passed away and eventually Tasha stopped looking for him. As Tasha aged, she became calmer but still loved to run. She loved to play with other dogs and her daddy. She never complained and became our best behaved dog. Our patience with her through the years was really paying off now, though she never stopped digging. But we loved her so much. She'd been with us for so long. She used to wait for me when I was out in the car. My wife tells me that she would just sit there beside the driveway unmoved for hours, just waiting for her daddy to come home. She got away from me a couple of times and ran down the road to Leroy's place. Now Leroy had passed away in 2018. And when she couldn't find him, she waited his driveway for me to pull up in the car. She was mellowing down now in her senior years. She would jump in the car happily and we'd go for a ride home. She loved riding in the car with her daddy. Any excuse for a car ride was Tasha's motto. And she knew if she got away from me, a car ride was in her near future. She had me trained. When I'd pull up, she'd be waiting patiently for me and run into the open car door with much enthusiasm. This was life. She always lived for the moment. She also loved ATV rides. Now that she was an elderly Siberian Husky, Tasha preferred to stay indoors where it was cool on hot summer days, and she chose the basement. She still loved being outside during the winter months, but not for very long. Her age began to show, and she began to slow down. Her face began to gray, yet she was still that little puppy to me that was so full of love, life, and enthusiasm. She could always cheer me up in an instant with one of her woo-woo-woos. She had gone from escape artist to the best behaved dog in the house. She was still selfless and loved all of the animals. She was kind, loving, and compassionate. I cannot say enough good things about her. She was a dream. In June 2022, we saw signs that she was nearing the end. She was 15 now, which is 90 for a Siberian Husky. She wasn't in pain. She was just an old girl. She still enjoyed her walks, but her endurance was fading along with her eyesight. The last week of her life, we only walked a couple times, and the last time we did, we only did it 100 feet or so before she exhausted herself, and I had to carry her back to the house. She squirmed a little, but settled and accepted it when I soothed her with a soft voice. I told her it was okay and that Daddy had her back. We cherished the last weeks that we had with her. We got to say a proper goodbye. I have no regrets about that at all. The final few days we had with her, we took shifts watching her during the night. She was always happy, even though I believe she knew that she was nearing the end of her days. She was one of a kind, a gentle giant, so full of love that it could make your heart explode. Tasha was so rooted in our lives that I knew when she was gone there was going to be a huge hole left. And she was really slowing down fast. On June 17th, she was laying down beside me on a pile of her comfy blankets as I stroked her ears and neck. I stood up for a moment to change my seating position. She stood slowly because wherever I was going, she wanted to go. I smiled at her and said, "Aw, look at you." Then she took a couple steps and she dropped to the floor. I picked her up gently and moved her to her blankets. She took several deep, long breaths, and I told her it was okay to let go. But I asked her to watch for me on the other side, and we would be reunited forever. I said softly that she could run free with Leroy, Hobo, Lucy, Pammy, and all the rest. Then she breathed her last breath and passed away gently as I stroked her. For 15 years, she was part of our family. She was a constant. Tasha was such a wonderful dog that I doubt I could ever put my feelings into words. She was loyal, loving, kind, compassionate, and so much more. I love you, Tasha, always and forever, baby girl. I miss you so much. I'll see you again one glorious day, and I know I'll be greeted with a happy, a woo-woo-woo. Then we can all go for another long walk through the woods together.